Now, Ruth, I'm gonna send my question out to you, and as I start to see them rolling in, um, you know, if you could identify in a word or two or a phrase some of the problems that you ran into while you were working on this project, what were some of the problems that you encountered? If you want to drop that into the chat room, and I'm just going to start spitting those out as soon as I start seeing them. I might have to start making things up. Um, and then who else haven't we talked to? Is Nancy?
Yep, Nancy is.
Here. Oh, there she is. I see her.
Yeah, they have Scott and Nick Kelly. Scott Lewis and Nick Kelly. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Okay.
Melissa had a project. Her project was a poetry unit, and students created projects using technology and presented them to the class. Students created prezzies, PowerPoints, web pages, and music videos.
And I guess, Melissa, I'm going to get you with the next question, and you can start filling those out. What would you consider what the students thought of the project? So think about when you worked with the students, could you type that in the chat room and just give us an idea of what the students thought of your project? And if I coordinate this well, Ruth is working on some of the problems and issues that she ran into. I guess, Nancy, I was going to ask you if you wanted to give me an overview in the chat room of what your project was all about. And then Amy, I'm gonna type to Amy and just ask her what project she did. Amy can hear us now. Hi, Amy. Hey, Amy, we heard you right before you signed off. But that's all right. Amy, if you've got an opportunity, can you go in the chat room? If your microphone works, that would be great, and talk to us a little bit about what your project was about.
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yay!
Wow, it's good to have one voice.
Something died in my computer, but it's fixed now.
Okay.
I'm actually going to have Lori Dreyer talk a little bit. She participated with our 5th grade group for the gifted kids, and she's in the red right here.
Hi, Lori.
Hi. Can you hear me okay?
We hear you fine.
Okay, great. My students, I had a 5th grade gifted classroom for language arts. And what we worked on was, our focus was immigration, and they did 2 large-scale projects. One was an independent project that they created trifold boards displaying all of their family history, and they researched a country of origin from their family. And then we put on a heritage festival that the community and parents and grandparents came to. And then they also did a group project where they researched responses to the 3 central questions that we had about immigration, and then created either posters and dioramas to tell us about it, or a PowerPoint.
Great. I'm just going to throw in some of the other projects. Nancy wrote that her project was that students had to find the area of the school roof and to find out which was the most cost-effective method for replacing the school roof. That's a great project. And I'll touch base with Melissa and Ruth here in a minute. You know, I guess I'll ask, what did you find that your students, if you had to say it was a success story of your what would you call the student success story of the project? Back to the first group. I'm sorry, from Springboro.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
That's right.
I think it was most successful just that they were involved in projects. And then the technology piece, we did some Skyping with an actual immigrant who had immigrated from El Salvador. And the students developed interview questions to ask her things they wanted to know. So that, I think, really made the most impact with them throughout the entire project.
Ruth brings up an interesting point in regards to, I think you mentioned it in Springboro, and that's I'm sorry, I've got too many names and too many balls in the air here. You mentioned the idea of students collaborating, and Ruth mentioned that seemed to be one of the problems that they ran into was finding time to collaborate. Anyone else, including Springboro, you want to comment on success or not a success with your students collaborating?
This is Lori from Springboro. For me, it wasn't a problem, but I typically teach that way. And so from day one of the school year, it's just an expectation, and we kind of go through those roles together and build in that classroom management piece so that they know exactly what's expected when they are working together, and then what we expect to see myself and my co-teacher kind of at the conclusion of each day, and we kind of sum up their progress. So it's just kind of a daily routine for us, and I think if you don't have that routine in classroom management in place, to put that in place just for a project, you are going to deal with some of those issues.
So, if you don't mind me jumping in, Jeff, one of the questions, if ODE, they've been thrilled with your videos, all of the videos. They're so excited about the work that's been done. If this project is repeated, do you have suggestions on what should be changed or improved, or what key pieces you want to make sure future participants in the Showcase project get?
Good question, Amy. Great. Sarah can hear us too. That's great. Sarah, do you have a microphone? If you don't, just type it in the chat room that you don't. But you don't have a microphone. Okay. You want to quickly, I got Nancy's too. Sarah, if you could in the chat room area then, could you put in what South Ranges project was? I know it, but I don't want to, spill the beans, so to speak. Nancy wrote, their project was about comparing percents of prices, more precisely looking to discover that percentages are not worth the same amount for each dollar value. The students researched products having different price points online, and they had to find discounts based on different percents. Great project. Ruth wrote in one of the issues that they ran into, and was this an issue that you saw within your projects also? Did you run into any tech issues? And folks, if you don't have a microphone, feel free to drop those in the chat room. Ruth mentioned that they had tech issues. The wireless is not overly reliable. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that in my lifetime. Our teachers had great projects, but they had trouble working around the different schedules. Sarah mentions that her project was dealing with determining the height of a projectile in midair. We used catapults to launch, and then my colleague Nick's project was making a scale model of our new Board of Ed office.
Oh, that's great.
Amy, were you trying to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, as far as our issues from technology, because that's what I kind of focus on, we had similar issues with wireless because our building did not have wireless. So we had some issues with iPads, but hopefully that's going to be changed in the future. And then another big technical thing, you said, what would you change for next time? I had to do all the video editing.
Oh, yeah.
And to create an 8 to 10 minute video when we literally had 40 to 50 hours to go down, that was a daunting task. So I think it needs to be adjusted where we just kind of hone in on specific items, because to get a big picture, I mean, I had hundreds of hours in this project, so I'd edited the 2 videos. So that was a little overwhelming.
So when you say you had hundreds of hours, you had hundreds of hours of footage?
Yes, I would go into, we did 2 classrooms, so I would go into each of the classrooms and I videotaped portions of the lesson. I would go back for follow-up when they were independently working, small groups, and it was just a massive amount of footage to give, I think, a little snapshot of what you guys wanted to see. Because project-based lessons are so huge anyway.
Right.
So would it have been beneficial at all or worth your time if we had a day of video editing where we took you out of the classroom, or would that just have been more of a headache than it's worth? Sarah says yes. I'm guessing yes, that would have been beneficial.
Well, on my part, for me, I know how to video edit. I used to run a TV show station with my kids. It's just the sheer time.
Yeah.
If you have a lesson that's an hour long, it's not going to hit all the aspects because you want to do the beginning, the intro, the follow-up. It's just a massive amount to crunch it down. So I don't know what could be fixed next time about that.
So you might think that if the focus was more on a single portion of the project-based learning project, is that what we're thinking about, or instead of the overall?
I think so, yeah, because to get the overall picture, I mean, you need a little bit here, a little bit there, and that takes days and weeks to complete. But if you would focus in on one specific item, I think that would help the video editor person a lot.
Okay. Sarah writes that it would have been good to discuss at the beginning of the project. Actually, what's the old adage of begin with the end in mind, and it sounds like that's what Sarah's talking about. Is it would have been a little easier if we would have began with the end in mind. What was going to be the final end project video? Is that what you're saying, Sarah?
And while she's chatting her response, I want to be very cognizant, and she says yes, I want to be very cognizant of your time. So we appreciate you being our first group and working with us through the technical issues and chatting with us. We're going to stay on a few more minutes, but if you need to leave, you go right ahead. My follow-up question would be, what was most beneficial about this project to make sure in future revisions that we don't get rid of what benefited you the most?
Girls, since they have a microphone, we're going to put them on the spot.
I think it was very beneficial to have our training, the half-day training, where we could kind of focus on any tech aspect that we wanted. For me, since I'm a gifted intervention specialist, I don't have access to smart boards and things unless I'm in my co-teachers' classrooms. And so I haven't had a lot of exposure to that. So that was helpful for me to focus that day on learning that piece so that I could integrate that into my project. I think from the side of teachers viewing the video, I think having the lesson plan and, student work samples and those things in place would be the most beneficial because, my project-based unit was a 6-week-long unit. So, that's part of the reason Amy had so much footage to condense. But if you're viewing a few-minute video, you don't really see, from the beginning to the end what goes into in terms of resources and all the activities and things to build that knowledge to get to the end. So I think seeing those other pieces help kind of explain what you see in the video.
Excellent. Thank you, Amy.
Ruth mentions that the project was an excellent opportunity to draw teachers into the whole project-based learning, and it's another way to incorporate technology in the classroom. So that was Ruth's thoughts on some of the beneficial parts of the project.
I meant thank you, Lori, right?
Yes. Thanks.
I'm leaning forward like that's going to help me see you better.
Well, and Amy, you've got me beat because I've given up. I've called them Springboro. How bad is that? So.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, Jeff, I do want to let all of these wonderful people go. This is not over. It is over for your contributions, and we are so grateful for the work that you did. Our goal now, we're working with ODE to vet the videos and really get materials together so that we can start promoting it with all of the other teachers in Ohio. So you may see some emails coming and saying, hey, we're showcasing your video on ODE site or on our e-news or something like that. And bravo. We are so grateful that you joined us, and have a wonderful summer.